Part 3. Boosting self-esteem. Transforming insecurity into confidence. Why boosting self-esteem matters. It's the foundation to true confidence. Low self-esteem can be a major contributor to fear and insecurity. It's the foundation upon which we build our confidence. By boosting your self-esteem, you lay the groundwork for a more courageous and self-assured you. The steps to building confidence. Now, what are ways to boost self-esteem? The first one would be confronting your fears. Confront that which you fear by asking yourself probing questions such as, what would happen if what I fear occurs? This exercise helps you dig deep to uncover the root of your fear. Another way would be terrorizing your fears. Terrorize your fears by mentally becoming something far more potent or worse than the fear itself, and then attack and terrorize it. This right here might sound oddly strange, especially when we don't understand the full potential that we can actually step on when we learn to use our mind for creation and our imagination to create that very thing that I am speaking up here in this example. So a visual that I can give you for those that are familiar with The Simpsons, right? I remember this episode where he had this glass, I forget what, micro glass, and he takes the sunlight ray and he aims it at his play soldiers so that the actual sunlight magnifies and burns the statues, the toy statues of these very soldiers. So terrorizing your fears is something similar to this visual, and the way that fear is coming firstly from our thoughts, and those thoughts create imagination or scenarios of things that can possibly go wrong or that can occur. And before we can even experience any of it, we are experiencing it in our minds before they even become physical, which more than likely they never actually become physical. But we give it so much emphasis that if you do focus on it long enough, you actually start attracting that very fear that you keep putting your attention and focus on. So by terrorizing your fear, what you're doing is the only focus you're giving that thought, that fear, that imaginary possibility is the focus of becoming more than it is in itself. Like Bart being the giant in front of these toy soldiers. And technically our thoughts and our fears are like toy soldiers. They're not alive, they're not physically living things, they're just possibilities within our minds that are being used to play themselves out through our imagination. So when we terrorize it, what we're doing is now, instead of imagining it in being the worst case scenario, we're understanding more of that fear by the practices used prior to the stuff that I explained before, but also getting to the root cause of why that fear is there in the first place. And once you learn the practice of reframing and transmuting and transforming these fears, you minimize its impact upon your thoughts, and it no longer affects you the same way they used to. And if they do affect you, you go back into reframing it so that you can terrorize it in a way that you become worse than the fear itself by you becoming it. So if you ever heard that saying, fear should fear me, it's similar to that perspective of what this is trying to describe. And at the fundamental stages, I don't really want to go in depth of how we can really use that to our advantage, but on the basic scale, the visual of Bart burning those statues, it's pretty clear of what I mean by that. Which brings me to the next one, which is something similar, but we're actually using the energy of fear to attract something that we actually would prefer, which is use and abuse fear. Instead of being at the mercy of fear, use and abuse it by connecting it to thoughts of things you want to attract. So as I mentioned before, the more we focus on what we fear, the more we're likely to attract it. But when we learn to starve that very fear of our attention, of our focus, of our energy, it is more than unlikely to manifest itself, because we're not feeding it with our focus, our attention. And if for whatever reason this fear happens to be something much greater than what we can handle to remove complete control and focus and attention from it, it is for us to now use it for our advantage. So instead of being in its mercy, now we want to use it by connecting that fear to something that we would rather attract instead. So the next time you feel the emotion state of fear, allow yourself to feel and become strongly embodied in that energy of fear. And then you're going to focus your attention to something you would prefer, or something that's more desirable for you. So for example, if you fear, let's say, spiders, right? And every time you see a spider or you think about spider, it just gives you cringes. It bothers you. And you haven't overcame the fear of spiders because you haven't placed yourself in the position to face that fear by holding a spider, for example. But if you feel it, even for a slight moment of you assuming that there is a possibility that a spider might be there, you can use that energy and transfer it into the fear of, let's say, chocolate. And the fear of chocolate makes you cut down on the addiction of such craving. So you can create we're easily able to create fear in our mind with just a simple thought. And by me just saying that, I know it sparked a moment of silliness, because it's like, how do you do that? And it's not about how, because it's going to be different for everyone. But let's say that you are scared of spiders and you're currently sitting and embodying that experience in that energy of fear. What you want to do is put all your focus into chocolate. Oh my God, I'm so scared of spiders. No, I'm scared of chocolate. Oh my God, chocolate is going to make me go so fat. It's going to make me sick. It's going to make me have heart conditions and so on. So you build this fear of chocolate, and you're transferring the fear of spiders into something that you would rather be fearful of, so that you can easily stop your craving and your addiction of it. Now, I personally can actually share a personal experience when I remember taking the energy of fear and transferring it into a higher energy, which in this case was the energy of reasoning. When we look at the levels of consciousness in the chart of Dr. David R. Hawkins, he brings and breaks it down as to where energies stand in density from the lowest into the highest, from contracted energies into expanded energies. So one of the tricks or skills, techniques that I normally use when I'm trying to bring denser, lower energies and transfer it or release them, all I have to do is step into the higher, denser energies. So in this case, it was an experience when I was driving, trying to get somewhere. I received a call by someone that I normally have, a multifaceted diversity in conversations. We can talk from anything to anything, right? And in this case, they brought in a story that they were telling me about, that it wasn't personally involving me or any concern to me, but for whatever reason, when the information was brought to me, it enticed an energy of fear in me, which I found is surprising, but I embraced it because I said, I don't normally feel fear, so this is definitely an opportunity for me to transcend this energy. So my thought pattern at that moment of feeling the energy was, how am I going to transcend this energy? Am I going to transmute it so that I can process it and release it? Or am I going to transfer it into something more advantageous for me? In this case, when you think about fear is about, and on the scale is about 100, right? I stepped into the energy of understanding by bringing up a concept that was going to make us process and perceive and better understand a situation. And because when you step into the energy of reasoning, for example, which is at a 400, you're stepping into understanding, where your viewpoint in life is finding the meaning behind something and how that meaning can advance us or a situation or bring a better understanding on the concept and the theory, so that in that better understanding we are alleviated by the fear, because fear comes from a place of not knowing, of not being sure, of the uncertainty that brings, or the unknown. So all you really have to do is understand and experience the embodiment of the emotions that you are feeling and allow yourself to be in it, so that by you allowing yourself to process and be within the energy and the embodiment of that energy without resistance or panic or pushing back you're just allowing it to be. So right there, when you allow yourself to be and you process what is going on, becoming aware of what is it that you're feeling by self-reflecting, you allow yourself to make the decision, what am I going to do with this energy at this moment? In this case in particular, I decided to transfer the energy to expand my wisdom about something. So I brought up a topic that was discussed previously, and because I wanted to step into reasoning and understanding, I brought in the concept into conversation once again, so that we can better explore and expand on the concept, therefore using that very energy of fear to do so. Because I had more energy within me to use for the concept, I literally came up with a new theory on the concept that we were discussing, a theory that surprised me on the answer that I had, but also bringing into awareness another possibility that had never been heard by me or the other individual. Therefore, using the energy of fear to expand on the wisdom and on the possibilities of what is truly possible once we use the energies that we are feeling and experiencing in a more productive and advantageous motion. Bringing me into the last one of how to boost our self-esteem with the transference of fear. Once again, by transmuting it, we're releasing it, but by transferring it, we are making use of it. Other ways that we can do this, we can use many other factors. For example, if you are angry at another person, you can transfer that anger of your, let's say, of that person into the perception of being angry at your laziness if you wish to be more driven, right? So instead of being mad at a person, that's not going to serve you. That's going to create unnecessary baggage, right? And bitterness and stuff. That's never going to serve you in your elevation, your growth, and in your self-mastery, right? Because it creates these stagnant, sticky emotions that keep us dense and stuck in positions in life that we really shouldn't be on. Once we learn that forgiveness is key, and by holding anything and not being able to forgive and move on, we're only placing ourselves in a disadvantage. So we can motivate ourselves even to forgive, for example, by motivating us with the fact that we know that by not forgiving, we are losing at the game of life. But by forgiving, I am gaining, because I am lightening my load, and therefore I can elevate a lot faster by removing the baggage that would in the past hold me back from moving forward, right? Because forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for the self, so that we can move on, so that we can have the heart as light as a feather, right? When we move forward and elevate into the next octave of ourselves, because we don't want the baggage of our past to ever hinder our movement forward and into our future. Why would we do that to ourselves? That would be an act of self-hate. That would be an act of disempowerment. That would be an act of a victim. And that would be an act of quitting on the self by allowing emotions of the past to dictate and infiltrate and influence our current state of being, right? And we don't quit on ourselves, because winners do not quit on themselves. So what we do is we're going to make sure that we use every single scenario and event and situation and tragedy and thought and emotion to our advantage. That even when we fail, we're going to learn how to fail, because we're going to perceive it with the mindset of a winner. We're going to know that by me failing right now, I learned this and I learned that and I learned that. Therefore, I can use all these things into my next pursuit, because as a winner, I would rather try than never try at all. I would rather have the emotional state of what is perceived as failure than that of regret for not doing it at all, because I would rather try knowing that I did try, and I know that I had the experience of what it is to try, and I know how it feels to be there, rather than not knowing anything at all, right? That's what moving forward looks like, not allowing our fears to ever stop us from moving forward, and all of these emotions that can infiltrate and affect us in the moving forward, which is what we're working on here. We're just working on the foundation that solidifies who we are. And we want to clear out or transmute or transfer anything that's going to keep us stuck and stagnant in the past, or stuck in the illusion of suffering and pain, and keeping us stuck in our fears, and keeping us stuck in our disadvantages and disempowerment and lack of self-esteem. That's why we're working on the basics first before we can step into the true winds of life, so that we can live a more fulfilled and satisfied life in true confidence, without the necessity of a facade and a costume to play and act like we are what we are not yet. We are truly becoming that which we wish to become, so that before we can even perceive it in the material world, we are in the truth element of it, in the embodiment of it energetically, right? And this is what we're doing here by taking this first step to self-mastery by doing the work of this course. Bringing me into the next part, benefits of boosting self-esteem. So for one, it enhances confidence. We need confidence to move forward. We need confidence to stand up to our fears. We need confidence to take the leap. We need confidence to take that risk. We need confidence to believe in ourselves, because if we don't have that, how can we do that? How can we step into the next version of ourselves? How can we step into the full potential if we don't have the confidence? Because by enhancing our confidence, we are boosting self-esteem that allows us to confront our fears with confidence and resilience. And the resilience obviously is coming from the experience that allows us to believe in ourselves, because we have not allowed fear, or we are no longer allowing fear to dictate our moves. We are no longer allowing fear to keep us stuck. We are no longer allowing fear to create these imaginary possibilities of all the wrong things that can happen, and instead we are being confident enough to believe in ourselves and taking the leap forward, and knowing that no matter what happens, we will have the resilience that is necessary to overcome it. No matter what the obstacles are, no matter what the tragedy is, no matter what the heartache or headache may come about this experience, it's about moving forward in the security that we are building, that comes through the confidence of knowing that we have all it takes to overcome any obstacle that comes about. Bringing me into the next one, greater self-assuredness. As you gain control over your fears, you become more self-assured in your ability to handle life's challenges. You become so self-assured after some time of practice, after some time of feeling that excitement. Yes, a challenge for me to overcome. Every time I am triggered, I am perceiving it as an opportunity to overcome myself, to overcome the fear, to overcome the challenge that I am facing right now, with the reassurance that I have what it takes to do so that I can build that confidence, so that when I say, yes, I feel this way, I'm not shaken out of that position. I am not shaken out of that insightful knowing that I know of myself, because only I can tell myself what feels right or what feels wrong. Nobody outside of me can actually tell me what is right or wrong for me, because I'm the one going through the experience of it. Therefore, only I can tell myself that, the same way as only you can tell yourself that. So you have to be confident enough to trust yourself through the process that you will have what it takes to overcome all obstacles. And if you feel at one point powerless and hopeless, just know that every storm passes and the sun is always going to shine again. Everything has its seasons. But when we learn how to embrace all seasons and learn how to master ourselves throughout these seasons, it doesn't matter what season is up, right? Because when you solidify yourself from the core, from the foundation, whether you're in the good season, bad season, is a subjective opinion in reality. Some people thrive best when they're in the negative season, which is perceived as a negative season. Let's say in winter. Some people thrive there because they don't have external distractions to take them out of the pursuit to, let's say, self-mastery. So they're taking these winter seasons to cultivate the knowledge, to cultivate the practice, to remain disciplined, to be consistent in their doing, so that by the time spring comes, they're a new version of themselves. They have grown a little higher. They are able to blossom a little more because they have now more branches of knowledge, of wisdom, of experience flourishing out of them. So they may seem like a different version, but in reality, they have just slightly expanded their self through the awareness of self, through the knowledge of practice, through the consistency and discipline of determination that they want to persist and pursue self-mastery, so that they can gain the wisdom that truly places them in their power and not in the illusion of what is perceived, quote unquote, as power. Bringing me into the last benefit, which is emotional mastery. That's a really big one. That's when we reach that, things get so much greater. Emotional mastery. You'll learn how to transmute and transfer emotions, giving you a greater understanding of your emotional responses and the power to direct them more effectively. That can be seen as a director of an orchestra. Even though we have certain elements of sounds coming from different instruments, for example, by mastering our ability to cultivate the emotional direction that we have, or the responses that we choose, we remain poised in our power because we don't allow the emotion to take over. Instead, we learn to master ourselves to the point of effortless emotional regulation. In fact, we can even gamify this, like I did throughout the years. Every time I was triggered, every time I saw myself slightly upset or triggered here or defensive here or so on, I would gamify my experience as if it was a game that I was playing. How do I do that? Well, let's see here. Let's say you are practicing to be stoic, right? And this I've been doing throughout the years. And every time I felt triggered, and every time I look back, I can say, if this would have been 5 years ago, I would have not acted this way. I am so proud of myself for the way I stood up to that, or I'm so proud of myself for not allowing that to take me out of character, for not allowing that to take me into an emotional roller coaster, because I became indifferent, right? The more you experience those triggers, the more you master them. So it's almost about allowing yourself to be triggered so that you can master them, right? So you gamify it. Let me see how many points can I gain by not reacting to these emotions that I know might trigger me or might not. These scenarios. And another thing I want to clarify here is that, as I mentioned in the last lesson, but when we step into this practice of self-mastery, we are placing our intention to master ourselves. And by simply placing the intention of self-mastery, You are consenting to the experiences that you need so that you can master yourself. Which is why, by gamifying the experience, you don't allow yourself to miss out on opportunities to do so. Instead, you get excited about these experiences. Go where it's easily triggered, where you can be easily triggered, and see how many times you can get triggered, and how many times can you remain stoic in your ability to remain in your indifference, right? Or how many times did you react? Now you know you have to remove points. Now you don't get special activities, or you cut off something out of your pleasures or out of your advantages or something. Give yourself a reward if you do good, and remove something if you don't, right? And once you get in the hang of this, it's going to be effortless. It's going to be something very natural. It's going to be more exciting than something difficult. With more practice comes the ability to master ourselves even more. So it's about expecting that, yes, every day is a new day, and in that day you can be triggered. In that day something can happen that can take you off course. In that day so many things could happen. How do you respond to that is really the real test. Because how you respond to it is what's telling. Doesn't matter who brought you the lesson. It doesn't matter what happened. The storyline doesn't matter. Just understand that these experiences that are going to be orchestrated to test your ability to master yourself are just that, stories, with actors that come veiled in the story that they have to play out for you so that you can practice your self-mastery. So it's nearly impossible to take things personal when you know that these people are just playing the role that they came to play in your story. In your story of self-mastering yourself. So that when you become all that you want to be, you're coming from a solidified and solid foundation where the external reality doesn't corrupt you, where the external reality doesn't manipulate you, where the external reality doesn't influence you or trigger you, where you are no longer a victim or a pawn in the game of life. You are now the observer of the game of life while participating by choice in it, right? It's two different point of views. And for those that don't want to be self-mastered, it's fine. There's no right or wrong. Like I said, it's only a choice. Everybody has their own reasoning for why they choose what they choose. But if you're here today and you're making the choice to master yourself because you have noticed that you need to learn how to self-regulate your emotional state, or your thoughts, or your feelings, or how you choose to perceive life, because you are realizing that it's not serving you, because you are realizing that you've been in this loop cycle year after year after year, and nothing has changed. And nothing has changed because you haven't changed. And if you think that you're not going to change and your will change, that is called insanity. And when you realize that you no longer want to be insane, and you actually want to do the work so that you can change your world, then you start doing things like this. So congratulations for making that choice. I am proud of you. I believe in you, because this is not an easy choice. Because this is not a decision that is just 1, 2, 3 to make. I'm sure that a lot of things had to happen in your life to give you that wake-up call, so that you can realize enough is enough, and I want to make changes. I don't want to continue this cycle. I don't want to continue what I've been seeing my whole life. I want to change the trajectory of myself and of my lineage and of my surroundings and of all those who are around me. I want to change everything about it because I've had enough. You believe in yourself already by even doing that. You believe that you have more to offer the world, which is why you're here. But you just need guidance, just like I did. And when the student is ready, the master will always appear, so that you too become a master And we continue that ripple effect of doing the same for another, because as we learn, we are teaching others, not by necessarily teaching them, but by leading that by example and showing them that it is possible. Because the only thing that we think is impossible is because we believe so, but we believe that there is more to it and there's more possibilities to what we can create, then that is exactly what we are creating. Bringing me into our conclusion, as in part 3 of lesson 2, you've explored the practices that transform insecurity into confidence. By boosting your self-esteem and learning to use fear as a motivator and guide, you've equipping yourself to confront challenges with courage and resilience. As you continue your journey of self-mastery, remember that you have the power to reshape your relationship with fear, and this newfound confidence will propel you forward towards your aspirations and dreams. Now, as we reach the ending of our lesson and we reflect on the lesson, I would love to hear the answer to the question of this lesson. What is one fear you've confronted or transformed in your life, and how did that experience impact your self-confidence and personal growth? You can feel free to share your answer in our community and just point out the lesson and what part, or you can just write at this point, you can write lesson 2, answer to question, and then give your answer, and that can give a unique perspective to all of us in our community, because I want to build a community. I just started at this point as you're watching this, depending on when you're watching this, but these are one of my first videos for my lessons, and I just started, and I'm looking forward to actually having a community where we can share our perspectives with one another and see each other's point of view and support one another as well, while also understanding that there are possible challenges that could come about, which I am also highlighting here as a disclaimer, because we have to be prepared that this journey isn't the easiest, but it certainly is one of the most rewarding, because this is something that nothing outside of you can give you. There's not enough money in the world that can give you the level of confidence that you will gain through the course of this program. So by remaining consistent, motivated, and open-minded to the possibilities of all that you can gain from this experience, you are positioning yourself into where you want to be in life, where you aspire and envision yourself in the future, with a more solidified foundation to withstand that very vision. So a few of the possible challenges that I'm going to point out would be the next following ones. So overwhelming fear. Some may find themselves overwhelmed by the intensity of their fears as they confront them. But remember that fear is a natural human emotion. It's a sign that you're diving deep into the transformative process. So embrace the fear as a sign that you're pushing your barriers and boundaries and growing, and you're on the right track. Don't let fear discourage you. And if you ever feel that you need support, you need encouragement as a community, I hope that we're all going to be here to do just that, to give a helping hand and a motivation and a shoulder to lean on for those that might need our support at the moment as they go through the courses in our academy. The next one might be impatience with progress. Impatience may arise when students desire quick results and transformation, but don't see immediate changes. Now understand, this is not a 1, 2, 3 step process. Not now, not ever. This is a lifelong practice, basically, because what you know today and what you're going to learn throughout the course, you're going to be cultivating it so that it is molded into your blueprint, so that you can use it throughout the course of your own personal life, because you can use this for everything, right? So by understanding that personal growth is a gradual process and takes time, celebrate every small victory along the way. The journey to mastering fear is a marathon, not a sprint. Your dedication and persistence will lead to lasting transformation. Right? So all we got to do is keep moving forward, one step at a time, and just keep moving forward, because you're almost there. And even if you're not fully there, you're almost there. And guess what? What we want to do is we want to embrace the journey. Because once we reach the goal, then we're looking for another goal, and then we're looking for another goal. So it's about embracing that very moment, whether it's a challenge or a moment of celebration. Be one with that present moment so that the journey is more enjoyable, because you don't want to rush to the goal and then you get to the goal, and because you didn't really cultivate and embody all the experiences that took place throughout your journey, you won't feel as fulfilled as you would if you do so. So take your time. There's no rush here. You got all of your life and the next one's to come. And for the next one, we have fear of fear. So some students may become afraid of fear itself, fearing it's too powerful to conquer. Now, if you use the practices that I just discussed, that's going to help you overcome this. But it is okay to feel this. It is okay to fear in itself, because sometimes it could be scary, because sometimes it could feel overwhelming, and sometimes you don't know exactly what you need to do in that very moment. So the emotional state becomes something that can be something we can't really control. But by embracing the idea that you have the power to transform fear into a guiding force, you recognize that you are in control, and fear is merely an indicator of areas in your life that need your attention and growth. The more you face it, the less power it holds over you. You are the master of your fears, not the other way around. So these challenges are all part of the process of understanding and mastering fear. By adapting these motivating perspectives, you can overcome them and continue on your path to self-mastery with greater confidence and resilience. Now, as your trainer, today I give you a little bit of my background and experience in training and certifications here, as well as the socials where you can find and follow us on social media and stay up to date with our articles on our site. And I'll leave you guys with that, and I'll see you on the next one.